Merry Christmas Eve. I'd like to share with you the last chapter, if you can call it a chapter. It's actually the epilogue of Book 3 of The Adventures of George and Mabel, based on an almost, well, you know. Ready? Epilogue, June 6th, 2030. Dear Uncle George, I just wanted to check in, again, to let you know how things are going. To begin with, I was able to get the roof replaced at the men's shelter. We thought at first it could be repaired, but decided to go ahead and redo it instead. It gave the guys an opportunity to take pride in themselves, as they were able to give back to the home that has given so much to them. Tommy is doing an excellent job being director here. I think Great Aunt Alice would approve of the farm being used to help these men recover from their addictions that have bound them. Next, I have an update for you on the Fitzgerald situation. Old Mike is in a wheelchair now, but still as crotchety as ever. Nonetheless, he's been able to get in and out of his home now without assistance. Stubborn goose. He fussed about as the ramps were being built and the doorways enlarged so he wouldn't bump his scrawny legs into them when he moved around from room to room. Oh. He finally finished his novel. Can you believe it? After all of these decades, an agent from the Foothills Writers Publishing Company discovered it, and Old Man Fitz is having his first book signing at Tybrisa Books here in Lenore in September. Speaking of the FWPC, Aunt Mabel would be so proud. When Gretchen accepted the position as editor-in-chief and we moved to Lenore several years ago, she had no idea how this former writing group would grow into such a conglomerate. Who knew that the Willing and Mabel blogs that she used to write about would be the stepping stone for other authors to be able to have their voices heard and published for all the world to see. Okay, moving on. I guess I should tell you that the Little Red Book Fund is still doing well. Thanks to those investments that Uncle Jim made, we should be able to continue our secret missions for quite some time. I still laugh, Uncle George, to think this all came about due to that lottery ticket you nearly threw away from your anniversary gifts. And then I look back and see all the good that has come from it. Not only the small things like anonymously donating new appliances to those who couldn't afford them, but also the sunflower scholarships that you arranged for deserving students to attend college. Some of my biggest joys, though, came from the times you did the secret St. Nick events. Those kids at the women's shelters who thought they'd lost everything when they had to flee in the night to escape. Ah, Uncle George, I shall always carry their smiles in my heart when they woke up the next day and received their presents. They especially loved the books that Aunt Mabel's friend Christy wrote. Speaking of Aunt Mabel and sunflowers, I took some to her grave for her birthday, like you asked me to. They're hard to find in December, but thanks to Aunt Jade's floral shop, well, let's just say I have connections. Oh, and speaking of connections, can I share something crazy with you? When baby George was born last month, Valerie brought him a stuffed possum. A possum, Uncle George? To say I was confounded would be an understatement. When Gretchen asked her about it, she only put her nose up and sniffed and said something about it wasn't the animal's fault it had to be associated with certain people. Does that make any sense to you? Grady, by the way, is loving his new brother. I am a blessed man, Uncle George. I hope you don't mind, but I now have my own very special G's, and my desire is to continue the legacy Pawpaw started way back when you were his G and he was yours. Speaking of legacies, I do believe Lulu Mom is going to outlive us all. Surprisingly, she's still getting around well. The last time I saw her was at the Christmas get-together. It's so cool, Uncle George, that yours and Aunt Mabel's families are so close. Chrissy and Mindy Lou even started their own restaurant called Take It or Leave It. Yeah, they make a daily special, and you guessed it, you either eat what's put in front of you or you leave. They don't put up the daily special because, yeah, you guessed it again, there isn't one. Oddly enough, it works. No one fusses because their order's wrong, since it's the only thing offered. Charlie is working for them too. It's her first job, and technically she's not old enough, even though she acts like she's 20. That girl is a spitfire, Uncle George, and yes, you don't have to remind me. I've got my eye out for her first vehicle. With her being the last of your nieces and nephews, I must say I will be so glad to be through with this part of your secret fund. I've had to get really creative with doing these things anonymously. You won't believe what I came up with for the twins when it was their turns. Okay, I'll tell you. I made up a Dumb and Dumber contest for a giveaway that awarded motorcycles for the dumbest Harry and Lloyd story possible. Between those two, there really wasn't a competition. No offense. Mom and Dad are away for the next few days. They decided to take off for their 30th anniversary. You know how much they love movies, right? I guess you won't be surprised to hear they went to Hollywood. Can you believe it? Oh my cow, as Aunt Mabel used to say. Mom would be over the roof if she met one of her TV idols. Okay, I know I'm forgetting someone. Amanda. Uncle George, let me tell you what she's up to. Are you ready? She's a songwriter. Yep. True story. She is now writing the songs the world sings. Big Jake would be so proud to know his love for Barry Manilow was not in vain. And to make it even better, Amber is singing them. She auditioned, as you remember, for that talent show a few years back. Well, she didn't win it, but somebody noticed her, and long story short, she's got a major record deal and is now a Dove recording artist. It's indeed a miracle. And lastly, I should mention Opal. Hopeful Opal, who Uncle Jimmy and Aunt Jade thought they would never get off to college because of her shyness and such. She's been accepted into some school up north for, drumroll please, fashion merchandising. Opal is going to be a designer. All those years of being experimented upon by her sisters and cousins are paying off. While they were using her to play dress up and messing with her hair and using her to try out their makeup on, she was paying careful attention. She watched their methods, made note of the color choices for what worked and didn't, and as they'd go to all those shops to try out prom dresses and spring formals and those silly things girls do, she was jotting down notes. Opal was secretly hoarding up these fashion tips and sketching out drawings for more appropriate styles that enhanced their appearances rather than making them look like pop stars. For her senior project at school, she presented her ideas, and some kid's fashion designing mogul mom was on the review board. She on the spot knew what a treasure Opal was and signed her up. Oh, and an interesting side note to all of this, Uncle George, is that she also has her own comic strip out. It's in the process of being syndicated, even though hardly anyone reads a newspaper anymore. Want to know the title? Based on an almost true story. Kind of catchy, huh? Well, I guess I should close now. Sunday's sermon isn't going to write itself. Besides, I think Gretchen is getting ready to make dinner, and baby George is starting to smell funny. Not to mention, Grady has my quarters spread all over the floor. He likes to help me put them in the candy machines, like you used to do. However, he doesn't like to clean as he goes, unlike what Aunt Mabel tried to teach us. I miss you too. Life just isn't the same without you. Today would have been your and Aunt Mabel's 40th anniversary. You know what? I'm going to put the sermon on hold and pack up the wife and kids and take them somewhere special. Yep, you guessed it, Uncle George. Sliding Rock, here we come. I think it's time that baby George and little Grady see where it all began. Until next time, miss you, Uncle George. Love always, your son, Sean. P.S. I just got it, Uncle George. Valerie gave our baby George an opossum because, ding, 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 that's what she called you when she was mad at you. Possum. Oh, man. I can't wait to tell Gretch.